I want to speak to you directly, not as an icon or a headline or a figure that people project their hopes and frustrations onto, but as someone who believes in the raw, powerful potential that lives inside every person who dares to think differently. You might not wake up every day feeling like you're building the future, but the truth is that the future is built from moments just like this one, moments when a single individual decides that they will no longer wait for permission to pursue the vision that pulls at their mind. Very good news rarely comes in the form of lottery tickets or sudden miracles. It comes in the form of realization, of awakening, of remembering that you are capable of far more than you have allowed yourself to believe. And today, for you, this realization is waiting at the door, ready to be invited inside. You know, most people underestimate themselves long before the world ever gets a chance to. They convince themselves that they must fit comfortably within boundaries that someone else drew. But if you look at any breakthrough in human history, any leap forward that changed how we live, travel, communicate, dream, you will find a person who simply refused to accept that limitation was the natural state of things. They weren't born with more intelligence or luck or resources than everyone else. What they had was a gravitational pull toward possibility, a wanting so intense that no obstacle could permanently shake it loose. You have that same force inside you, whether you've recognized it or not, and all the good news I could ever give you pales in comparison to what happens the moment you decide to trust it. People speak of fear as though it's an enemy, but fear is just the mind's way of highlighting areas where growth is possible. When you stand on the edge of something that matters, something your soul knows is important, fear comes in like a spotlight, illuminating every path that leads to expansion. The courage you need doesn't involve silencing fear, it involves acknowledging it and then stepping forward anyway. Every major decision I've ever made, launching rockets when the world expected failure, creating cars that people said would never be practical, taking risks that seemed absurd, was accompanied by fear. But fear never made the decision. Vision did. And vision is far more powerful when fed by a sense of purpose. This message is not about me. It's about what happens when someone stops treating their dream as a fragile idea and starts treating it as a mission they owe to themselves. You don't need $1 billion or a massive company or a team of engineers to begin building something extraordinary. You need clarity, persistence, and a willingness to look foolish for a while. Innovation rarely looks impressive in its early stages. It often looks messy, uncertain, and even misguided. But so do seedlings before they break through the soil. You're in one of those phases now, the part of the journey where the soil feels heavy, the world seems quiet, and growth is happening in places no one can see yet. Don't mistake invisibility for insignificance. Quiet progress is still progress. Very good news is that you are standing at a threshold that most people never muster the courage to approach. You are becoming aware of your own potential, and awareness is the spark from which every revolution begins. You might think your ideas are too strange or too ambitious or too unrealistic to matter, but the ideas that matter most often begin that way. The world doesn't need you to be realistic, it needs you to be bold. Realism is just the art of editing dreams down to the size of people's fears. But you have the capacity to imagine without shrinkage, and that is a power that millions of people unknowingly surrender. There will be people who try to talk you out of your vision. Not because they don't want you to succeed, but because your courage reminds them of the risks they were too afraid to take themselves. They will try to wrap their anxiety as wisdom, offering caution not because it is necessary but because it is familiar. If you listen to every voice that insists you should slow down or play small, you'll inherit their limitations. But if you listen to the voice inside you, the one that gets louder whenever you think about the future you want to create, you'll inherit the world that voice is trying to guide you toward. You don't need validation to begin. You don't need applause. You don't need certainty. You need a single step, followed by another, followed by one more even when the path seems unclear. You need patience with yourself and impatience with excuses. You need the internal agreement that even if you stumble, even if you fail spectacularly, you will not let the story end there. Failure isn't a verdict. It's data. It's iteration. It's the universe showing you the weak point in the structure so that you can reinforce it. You can't discover your limits without pushing them, and pushing them is how they expand. And here's something you may not have realized: the universe responds to momentum with opportunity. People often wait for the perfect conditions before they begin, but perfect conditions are a myth used to justify postponement. Once you start moving, once you generate motion, possibilities emerge that were invisible before. The right people appear. Resources fall into place. Timing aligns. It's not magic, it's the physics of effort. Energy in motion attracts outcomes that remain stagnant when you're standing still. Your greatest breakthroughs will not happen before you start, they will happen because you start. So let this message be the beginning of that ignition process. Let it be the catalyst that reminds you that your dreams are not accidents, they are assignments. They are signals from the part of you that already knows what you are capable of. The fact that you want something is evidence that it is possible for you. Human imagination is not random. It is evolutionary. It points us toward futures we are meant to inhabit. If you were not capable of reaching a vision, it would not have appeared in your mind with such persistence. You might think you are reading these words by coincidence, but I prefer to see it as alignment. Timing that feels random is often deeply intentional beneath the surface. You're at a point in your story where momentum is available, real momentum, and choosing to act now rather than later will change the trajectory of the next year, the next decade, maybe even the rest of your life. You don't need to know the whole plan. You just need to say yes to the next step. This world is hungry for innovators, for thinkers, for builders, for problem solvers who don't flinch at difficulty. Hard things are what make life interesting. If everything were easy, we would have nothing to strive toward and nothing to grow from. The challenges you face are not signs that your path is wrong, they are signs that your path is meaningful. If the dream were insignificant, resistance would be minimal. The weight you feel is the weight of something worth carrying. And here is the good news that is only for you. The kind of good news that doesn't evaporate after a moment of excitement but grows stronger the more you act on it. Your potential is not theoretical. It's real, tangible, ready. You are capable of reshaping your life in ways that will shock you. You have strengths you have not accessed yet, creativity you haven't tapped, resilience that will reveal itself when tested. You are standing at a doorway, and you are more prepared than you think to walk through it. If you understood even 10% of what you are truly capable of, you would never doubt yourself again. You would wake up every day energized by the possibility of what you could build. You would stop asking whether you are ready and start recognizing that readiness emerges through action, not contemplation. You would stop worrying about what people think and start focusing on what you know. You would become unstoppable, not because obstacles disappear but because they become irrelevant. So let today be the beginning of a new chapter, one in which you stop waiting for permission and start creating momentum. You are not here to live a recycled version of someone else's dreams. You are here to build your own. Everything begins with one decision, the decision to believe that your vision matters. And it does. More than you realize. And as you move forward, something remarkable begins to happen. Your mind starts to adapt to the new environment created by your courage. Paths that once seemed hidden begin to reveal themselves. You start to notice opportunities that previously blended into the background. You begin developing an instinct for possibility, a kind of internal radar that strengthens the more you act upon it. This shift isn't loud or dramatic at first. It's subtle, like the first glimmers of dawn on the horizon. But soon enough, it grows into a full sunrise, illuminating directions you couldn't see before and accelerating your momentum in unexpected ways. There is a point in every journey where the person you used to be begins to shed like an old layer of skin. Not because that version of you was flawed, but because it was preparing you for transformation. Growth requires letting go of the familiar, even when the familiar feels comfortable. Comfort is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. If you want to become someone you haven't been yet, you must be willing to release the patterns, fears, and constraints that kept you at your old level. This release doesn't always feel easy, but it always feels freeing once you take the step. Every time you embrace a new challenge, a new identity begins to form, one shaped not by hesitation, but by the power of decisive action. People often imagine that breakthroughs arrive like lightning bolts, sudden, dramatic, impossible to miss. But in reality, breakthroughs are usually built from the accumulation of countless small, courageous decisions. It's the moment you choose to keep going after a setback. It's the night you stay committed to your vision instead of numbing yourself with distraction. It's the instant you say no to something that drains you and yes to something that strengthens you. Each of these choices is a brick, and over time, the structure of your future becomes undeniable. You may think these small steps barely matter, but they are the very foundation of everything extraordinary. There is a kind of magic that appears when you align your actions with your purpose. Not the mystical kind, but the practical kind, the kind that emerges when effort and intention meet consistency. People will start to sense it in the way you speak, in the way you carry yourself, in the way your ideas seem to unfold with increasing clarity. You will notice it in the way you handle challenges that once intimidated you. Tasks that seemed overwhelming will feel manageable. Decisions that once filled you with doubt will feel intuitive. That feeling of alignment isn't accidental. It's the natural consequence of living in harmony with your potential. And here's something important to remember: the journey you are on is not linear. It will move in curves, dips, and ascents that don't always make sense until later. There will be days when your progress seems invisible, when you wonder whether the effort you're putting in is actually moving you forward. On those days, you must remind yourself that growth is not always visible, but it is always happening. Some of the most powerful transformations occur beneath the surface, preparing you for breakthroughs that will appear suddenly and change everything. Trust the unseen work. Trust the process unfolding within you. Trust that every step you take is shaping you into the person you need to become. There will also be moments when life tests your commitment, pushing you to see whether your vision is built on fleeting excitement or enduring purpose. These moments are not obstacles, they are auditions for greatness. Anyone can dream when everything is easy, but only a few remain devoted when things become difficult. The difference between those who succeed and those who stop isn't intelligence or talent, it's persistence. Persistence is the engine that drives every impossible achievement. It's the force that transforms intention into reality, desire into accomplishment, vision into impact. Do not underestimate the importance of the energy you bring into your own life. When you approach your goals with confidence, curiosity, and determination, the universe seems to respond in kind. When your internal world is aligned with expansion, your external world begins to reflect that expansion. This doesn't mean ignoring challenges or pretending problems don't exist. It means choosing to face them with creativity instead of fear. It means deciding that every challenge is a puzzle waiting to be solved rather than a signal to retreat. That mindset alone is enough to separate you from the majority, because most people stop at the first sign of resistance. But you won't. You can't. You're moving towards something bigger than comfort. Sometimes you will feel like the only person who believes in your dream, and that's perfectly fine. Visionaries often walk paths that others cannot see yet. People tend to understand something only after it becomes obvious, and by the time it becomes obvious, the visionary is already on to the next mission. You are not meant to wait for the world to catch up before you begin. You are meant to start now, knowing that the world will understand later. Think about every invention, every breakthrough, every technology that shaped humanity. Each of them began with someone who chose to follow a vision that looked ridiculous to others. Flight looked ridiculous. Electricity looked ridiculous. Space exploration looked ridiculous. Electric cars looked ridiculous. Innovation never begins with approval. It begins with persistence in the face of skepticism. You, too, have a vision that may not be fully understood right now. It might be unconventional. It might be ahead of its time. It might be the kind of idea that requires you to grow into the person capable of executing it. That's exactly why it's valuable. The more you invest in your vision, the more your confidence will grow, not because everything becomes easy, but because you develop first-hand evidence that you can handle whatever comes your way. Confidence isn't a gift, it's a byproduct of taking action despite uncertainty. Every time you move forward when it would have been easier to stand still, you strengthen a part of your identity that will serve you for the rest of your life. You become someone who doesn't wait for the perfect moment, but who creates it. Someone who doesn't rely on motivation, but who relies on discipline and strategy. Someone who understands that their potential expands every time they push beyond their comfort zone. You are becoming someone who creates momentum simply by existing in alignment with your purpose. That is rare. That is powerful. That is the kind of energy that can change not only your life but the lives of those around you. People who witness your transformation will feel inspired to awaken their own potential. Your courage will create a ripple effect that spreads farther than you can imagine. And the world needs more of that, more people who dare to rise, who dare to innovate, who dare to believe that their dreams are worth pursuing even when the path is uncertain. And as you continue walking this path, something within you begins to shift in a way that is both subtle and profound. You start to realize that you are no longer simply reacting to life, you are shaping it. You begin to feel a deeper sense of ownership over your direction, a recognition that the choices you make today are actively sculpting the person you are becoming tomorrow. This understanding brings with it a kind of quiet power, the kind that grows from knowing you are not waiting for circumstances to change before you act, but choosing to change your circumstances by acting. That shift, from waiting to creating, is what transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. With each step forward, your vision becomes clearer. Not because the external world suddenly rearranges itself to match your desires, but because your inner world becomes more aligned with what you truly want. Clarity doesn't always arrive in a lightning flash, often, it unfolds in layers. One insight leads to another, one breakthrough opens the door to the next. You begin to see patterns in places you once saw chaos. You begin to sense direction where you once felt lost. And the most remarkable part is that this clarity was always inside you. It simply needed your willingness to pursue it before it could reveal itself. There's a misconception that those who achieve great things are somehow fearless, but the truth is much more human. Every person who has ever built something meaningful faced moments of doubt, fear, and uncertainty. Fear is not a signal to stop, it is a signal that you're touching the boundary of what you've known so far. Growth happens on the other side of that boundary. When you feel that familiar tightening in your chest, that whisper of hesitation, recognize it not as a warning but as confirmation that you are exactly where you need to be. It means you're expanding. It means you're approaching territory that will elevate you. It means transformation is near. And despite what you may believe, you don't need perfect consistency to succeed. You don't need to be an unstoppable machine. You are human, and being human means some days you will feel powerful and other days you will feel fragile. That is not a flaw. That is the rhythm of progress. What matters is not that you are invincible, but that you return to your mission again and again, even after moments of rest or uncertainty. True dedication isn't measured by the absence of struggle, but by the persistence that continues in its presence. There will be days when you question your progress, when your mind tries to convince you that your efforts aren't amounting to anything. On those days, remember that seeds take time to break open. Underground growth is silent but essential. Nothing meaningful blooms overnight. The invisible phase is where structure is forming, where roots are deepening, where strength is being built quietly. The work you are doing now, even when it feels small, is laying the foundation for breakthroughs that will emerge when the time is right. Do not mistake silence for stagnation. You are growing even when you cannot see it. You are also learning to trust yourself in ways you may not fully understand yet. Trust is not built in a single moment. It is earned through repeated experiences of seeing yourself rise to challenges. Each time you show up when it would have been easier to give up, you strengthen that trust. Each time you honor your vision instead of abandoning it, you reinforce your belief in your own capability. Confidence built on external validation is fragile, but confidence built on self-trust is unshakable. And you are in the process of developing the kind of inner stability that can weather any storm. As your mindset evolves, you might start to feel the distance between who you used to be and who you are becoming. This is not something to fear, it is evidence of progress. Growth often requires leaving behind older versions of yourself. Not because those versions were bad, but because they were limited by the perspectives, fears, and constraints that your new path no longer accommodates. When you feel yourself outgrowing old environments, old expectations, old identities, understand that this is exactly what happens when someone is rising to meet their potential. You are not losing anything, you are evolving. And evolution has a strange way of attracting the right people and circumstances into your life. When you elevate your mindset, you naturally elevate your environment. People who resonate with your new way of thinking begin to appear. Opportunities that align with your purpose start to surface. Resources you once lacked begin to materialize. This isn't coincidence. This is alignment. The moment you commit deeply to your vision, the world begins to adjust, slowly at first, then rapidly, to support it. But it all starts with your decision to act, to believe, to persist. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs happen after the moments when you were closest to giving up. That is why perseverance is so powerful. When things feel the hardest, it is often because you are nearing a turning point, a breakthrough, a shift that will make everything you've endured worthwhile. Pressure precedes expansion. Struggle precedes mastery. Doubt precedes clarity. These cycles are not signs of failure, they are signs that you are in motion, and motion is what creates change. You might not fully realize it yet, but you are building a momentum that will grow exponentially. At first, it feels like pushing a heavy object uphill, slow, demanding, uncertain. But once the momentum takes hold, the energy shifts. What once required effort begins to feel natural. What once felt impossible begins to feel inevitable. That is the magic of perseverance meeting alignment. It is the moment when the world begins to move with you rather than against you. Do not underestimate how far you can go with this kind of internal fire. A single person with a clear vision and unwavering determination has the power to spark movements, reshape industries, and redefine the future. Every revolution, every innovation, every paradigm shift in history began with someone who refused to accept things as they were. You have that same potential. You carry the same spark. The difference is not capability, it is commitment. And you are beginning to commit in a way that sets you apart from the crowd. And as this journey reaches its next great unfolding, you begin to see the truth that was woven through every struggle, every moment of doubt, every unexpected breakthrough that carried you forward. You were never meant to stay where you started. You were meant to grow, to expand, to rise into the version of yourself that once only existed in flashes of possibility. And now that possibility is becoming reality, shaped by your decisions, your discipline, your willingness to continue even when progress seemed invisible. That determination has carried you farther than you may yet realize. There is a moment, quiet, profound, when you recognize that the person you have become is no longer someone who waits for the world to give permission. You are someone who creates direction from within. Someone who acts without needing external approval. Someone who understands that the greatest transformations come from trusting that inner fire even when no one else can see it. When you reach this moment, an entirely new kind of freedom enters your life, a freedom built not on circumstance but on identity. You become the architect, not the observer. Everything you have experienced so far, every setback, every unexpected success, every challenge that forced you to grow beyond your comfort, has prepared you for the next leap. And you are ready. More ready than you were last year, last month, even last week. Growth has been happening within you continuously, even in the moments when you doubted it. Especially in those moments. Pressure forges strength. Uncertainty shapes clarity. Resistance builds resilience. You're not just moving toward your future, you are becoming the person capable of sustaining it. And now, a new kind of momentum begins to take over. You've learned how to navigate doubt, how to manage fear, how to stay committed even when the path winds in unexpected ways. You've built resilience from the ground up. You've learned to trust yourself, not as an abstract idea but as a lived reality. That trust will carry you through storms that would have once shaken you. It will guide you when new challenges arise. It will empower you to step into bigger opportunities, larger visions, and higher levels of purpose. You are entering a phase of your journey where the external world begins to reflect the work you've done internally. People will notice the shift, even if they can't explain it. They will feel the clarity in your voice, the conviction in your choices, the strength behind your decisions. They will sense that you are no longer driven by fear or hesitation but by vision. And vision, once aligned with action, becomes nearly impossible to ignore. It is the kind of force that shapes futures. But the most important part, the part that truly matters, is this: you now understand that the power was never out there. It was always inside you. It was in the courage you showed when you took your first difficult step. It was in the resilience you displayed when things broke and you rebuilt anyway. It was in the belief you nurtured when circumstances tried to convince you otherwise. It was in the very fact that you kept going. That persistence is the hallmark of people who achieve the extraordinary. Your story is far from over. In many ways, it is just beginning. The world ahead of you is wide, open, malleable, eager to be shaped by your hands, your ideas, your determination. Every dream you've held close to your heart is not a fantasy, it is a direction. Every vision you imagine is not accidental, it is a blueprint. You are not someone who dreams randomly. You are someone whose imagination is a compass pointing you toward your potential. And now, that potential is unfolding. This is the moment where you stand tall in the knowledge that you are capable of creating something meaningful, something that will outlast challenges, outgrow limitations, and outshine doubt. You don't need the world to tell you you're ready. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need every answer. What you need is exactly what you already possess: the willingness to keep moving forward. The path you choose from here will not always be easy, but it will be yours. It will be built from your courage, shaped by your choices, and strengthened by your resilience. You have entered a chapter where possibility is not something you chase, it is something you embody. You have become the kind of person who doesn't wait for inspiration but becomes it. The kind who doesn't fear the unknown but steps into it with curiosity. The kind who understands that greatness is not a destination but a continuous act of rising. And now, as you move forward into the life you are creating, remember this: you have everything you need to succeed. You have everything you need to transform. You have everything you need to rise. The universe does not place dreams inside people who cannot fulfill them. It places them inside those who are destined to grow into the version of themselves capable of making those dreams real. That is you. It has always been you. And now, as your story continues, let this be the quiet but powerful truth you carry with you: the future is not something you wait for, it is something you build. and you are ready to build it. And as you step into the next phase of your journey, you begin to realize that the strength you carry now is not something you found suddenly, but something you built piece by piece through every choice that brought you here. You've discovered that growth isn't an event, it's a practice. A continuous unfolding of your potential. And with this understanding comes a deeper confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be felt. It lives quietly inside you, guiding you with the certainty that you can handle whatever lies ahead. You are no longer intimidated by the unknown. Instead, you see it as a canvas, wide, open, inviting. You understand now that the unknown is not a threat but an opportunity, a space where you can create, explore, and redefine what is possible for your life. You approach it with curiosity instead of fear, with determination instead of hesitation. This shift alone sets you apart from the version of yourself that once doubted what you were capable of. Now you know that stepping into new territory is not something to fear, but something to embrace. The doubts that once lingered in your mind no longer have the same power. They may still whisper occasionally, but they no longer decide your direction. Every time you choose your vision over your fear, you weaken doubt's influence. Every time you choose purpose over hesitation, you reclaim more of your inner power. You've learned that growth is not about eliminating uncertainty, but about moving forward despite it. And that realization has transformed you into someone who no longer waits for perfect conditions, because you know that perfect conditions are created, not found. You carry within you now a deeper understanding of what it means to persist. You know that persistence is not about grinding endlessly, but about returning to your purpose again and again, even when you feel tired, even when the path feels unclear. Persistence is the quiet promise you make to yourself that you will not abandon the future you desire. It is the steady heartbeat beneath every step you take. And this commitment has shaped you into someone capable of achieving far more than you once believed. As you look ahead, you see not just possibility but responsibility, the responsibility to become the fullest version of yourself, to honor the potential that has been growing inside you, to build a life that reflects your courage rather than your fears. You understand now that your dream is not just something you want, it is something you are meant to bring into the world. It is a piece of the future waiting to be shaped by your hands, your mind, your heart. And that responsibility is not a burden, it is a privilege. And so you move forward with a new kind of certainty, a certainty built from experience, from growth, from resilience. You step into the next chapter not with hesitation, but with readiness. Ready to build, ready to rise, ready to become. The future is not a distant hope, it is something unfolding beneath your feet with every step you take. And you are prepared now, not just to meet that future, but to create it with intention, with courage, and with the unwavering belief that you are capable of shaping something extraordinary.